In this video, I want to introduce our Module 7, Parse JSON in your app and code review. I'll start by scrolling to the bottom so we can see what's due. First of all, Sprint 1 is due for the final project. Now, questions I get very frequently are, am I grading this and what's expected for Sprint 1? Well, I'm not grading your Sprint 1 per se. I'm grading the code reviews on it, but I'm not grading the Sprint review one itself. On that note, the code review is to your advantage because the better reviews you get and the more code that you get reviewed, the better looking your code is going to be when I actually grade it at the end of the term. So as a rule of thumb, the more complete work, and I emphasize complete, but the more complete work that you can get in by Sprint 1 to be code reviewed, the better your final project. And also remember on the grade sheet that one of the things you have to do is integrate at least 3 code review comments throughout the semester. So it is a graded feature for your project, but I'm not going to grade your final project right now. After that, we have quiz question suggestions, which of course you should complete after watching all the lectures. Then we have a special survey here called Sprint 1 Retrospective. And this is a ceremony that we typically do at the end of any sprint, where we just say, what can we stop doing that wasn't a good use of our time? What can we start doing that will be a better use of our time? But keep in mind, if we're going to do something new, that time has to come from somewhere. So if you're going to start something new, you might want to consider what you'd stop in its place. And then continue. What worked well in the sprint that you want to continue doing? So that's just a quick survey. It's not the quiz that we typically have, and it's not quiz question suggestions. It's just an additional survey that we'll take as part of our end of sprint ceremonies. Next, we'll have the Sprint 1 code review, which I'll discuss in just a moment. And of course, the quiz that we always have. This quiz covers last week's material. So Sprint 1 code review. Because we're at the end of this sprint, the code review will be due next week. So use the Blackboard calendar. That's the official calendar of record for our course. But look at that for the actual due dates. But essentially, the code review is due 1 week after the end of sprint. Now, that's not typically how Scrum works. Typically, we'll do code reviews anytime a feature is merged, usually, or when a feature is complete. We typically don't save it for the end of the sprint, but nonetheless, with our multi-group environment, that's the way that we're going to be working. So for the code review, a few things I want you to look at. First of all, I have a video that I've put in this week's learning module and in the code review instructions itself that talk about how to do a code review. It's very important to do it how I describe it in the video. That is, number 1, take a look. Down here, you'll see a list of code reviewers per team. So the group name is here. For example, this one's Movie Hub. The team members are in the first column here, and the code reviewers are in the next column. So first of all, make sure that you are listed as a code reviewer on a project. If not, let me know ASAP. Also, make sure that your group's Scrummy board and GitHub link are correct and up to date. If not, let me know. Next, if you are the GitHub administrator for your group, which is typically also the Scrum Master and the product owner, take a look at the code reviewers who are assigned to you. Go down to the bottom of this list, and there's a dictionary of Bearcat IDs, or in other words, 6+2s. Go in and add these people as contributors to your project. You will need to do that before they can start their code review. So that's an important step to do early on if you happen to be the GitHub administrator for your group. Now, after that, let's say you want to go in and do a code review. So you look for your name and you find out which project you're reviewing. What you'll do then is you will create a branch in GitHub, which is your specific code review branch. And then after that, you will essentially check out this branch and make your suggestions in code. And what I mean is, don't put comments in a source code file and say, hey, this project looks great, you should really do this. Don't do that. Instead, demonstrate the concept with code. Show how to do it with code. You're in your own branch, so you can do that and you won't mess up the master branch that the group is using. Just be sure to create your own branch. Then push and then do a pull request, and then we'll start a code review dialog from there. So the video goes into more detail, but it is very important to follow this process because it will make it easier to get feedback and to give feedback. Here's a look at a really good code review I had in a recent semester. This student did a description of the program, out on the merge request, on the pull request, which is what should happen. So basically kind of describe the changes that you made, make an analysis of the program. Was the program available for you? Did it compile? What are some concepts that you learned from the review? Now you see what we can do with this pull request is we can take a look at the files that were changed and we can add comments. What I really like about this code review here is notice that the discussion is not in the source code itself. But take a look down here. The code reviewer made a change and then explained the change using one of these comments in line. And to make a comment, you simply look for the plus, click, and there you go. You can write a comment. I'll cancel this one out, but that's how you kind of start this discussion. So don't be tempted to add comments in code to describe your intention. That's not what that's for. Instead, use this discussion here. Note that the student started here, and this is what I really like. One of the team members of the project getting reviewed added a comment back, and then I commented again. And you see this pattern repeats over and over again several times. So what happened is it went from a code review to a very healthy discussion where all parties were learning, and I was able to go in and add a bit of contribution myself. So that's where code reviews can be really helpful. We want to put that discussion here in the pull request, and then we also want to have a pull request that we create where we describe what we did in the code review. So that's code review. Now, the other big thing that we're going to do in this learning module, allow me to navigate back, the other big thing we're going to do in this learning module is take a look at JSON. So we're going to look at two different approaches here. And first of all, why do we want to take a look at JSON? Well, we know that we have things like the Cincinnati Open Data Initiative where you can find all kinds of data that you can pull into your app. You can also find weather data, GeoIP data. There's quite a bit of data that you can pull into your app. Now, what's data versus information? Data is just stuff. Information is what happens when you take data and make something useful out of it. Many times you can combine data together from different sources to come up with information. So think of your app doing that. Think of how it can combine data to come up with information. So the second part of our series will be looking at how to parse JSON. So we have a traditional approach, which is where we open a stream and we receive data, and then we parse that raw data into JSON. So that's one attempt which uses these three videos here. After that, we take a look at a different approach, which is called retrofit. Retrofit's a library that we can use to parse JSON for us. The only trick is, retrofit makes a lot more sense if you understand the other way to do it, which is why I'm looking at two different approaches. If you're going to integrate JSON data into your app, you can choose either approach, whichever fits you best. As a matter of fact, the first couple videos here are for reading any kind of data, not just JSON data. So that might be helpful if you have fixed column data, XML data, plain text data, or something else that you want to read that's not necessarily JSON. These first two videos will help in that case. We'll take a look at our Scrum board as we typically like to do at the start of the week and create BDD tests for given when then. I believe we've already done that. We'll go ahead and put that into complete. For the DAO layer, we have not done that. Create look and feel for insert and edit mode, we've not done that. In progress, create a look and feel for view mode. That's still in progress. Create service implementation. We're going to work a lot on that this week. Handle inputs through the Spring controller. Nothing more to do with that at the moment. And then set up a template for consistency. We did finish that last week. I will go ahead and move that over to done. So at this point, our Scrum board looks up to date. So that's a look at our learning module for this week. It includes several very popular topics, so I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.